In the quiet desert of New Mexico, a group of scientists worked tirelessly inside a small research facility. The building was plain and unremarkable from the outside, but inside, it buzzed with excitement and curiosity. Dr. Emily Roberts led the team, her calm demeanor masking the thrill she felt about their latest discovery. Alongside her were Daniel Carter, a biologist who constantly asked questions that others found strange, and Laura Bennett, an engineer who preferred facts over imagination. The focus of their work was something unusual, an organism found deep within a limestone cave. It was small, no bigger than a human hand, and its surface glowed faintly with shifting patterns of light. The team had never seen anything like it before. Its glow pulsed rhythmically, almost like breathing, and it seemed to respond subtly to changes in its environment. They called it Lumina because of its glowing nature. Daniel couldn't stop staring at the creature. He leaned closer to the glass container holding it, his eyes wide with wonder. "Why are humans made so differently?" he muttered under his breath. Emily glanced up from her notes and raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" she asked, amused by his random musings. Daniel shrugged. "I mean, look at this thing. It's alive, clearly intelligent in some way, and it doesn't even have a body like ours. No arms, no legs, no brain. At least, not one we can see. And yet, here it is, doing things we can barely understand. Why couldn't we be made like that?" Emily chuckled softly. "If we were, I doubt we'd be sitting here trying to figure out how it works," she replied. But as she turned back to her microscope, her smile faded. Something about Lumina's cells didn't add up. Under the lens, the organism's structure looked both familiar and alien. There were strands resembling DNA, but they twisted in ways she'd never seen before. It was as if Lumina shared some distant connection with life on Earth, yet it came from somewhere else entirely. Laura walked over, her clipboard in hand. "Any luck figuring out what makes it tick?" she asked. Emily shook her head. "Not yet, but there's something different about it. I just can't put my finger on it." That night, the lab was quieter than usual. Most of the team had gone home, leaving only Daniel and Laura behind. Daniel had convinced Laura to stay late, insisting that they might miss something important if they left too early. Laura wasn't thrilled about working overtime, but she agreed, knowing Daniel's enthusiasm often led to unexpected breakthroughs. As they ran tests on Lumina, Daniel accidentally spilled a nutrient solution onto the sample tray. The liquid spread quickly, pooling around the edges of the container. For a moment, both scientists froze, worried they had damaged the delicate organism. But instead of wilting or dying, Lumina absorbed the liquid instantly. Its glow brightened, and tiny tendrils began to sprout from its surface. Laura gasped. "Did you see that? It's growing." The tendrils stretched outward, branching like roots searching for water. Within minutes, Lumina had doubled in size, forming what looked like rudimentary appendages. It wasn't just alive. It was evolving, right in front of them. "This is insane," Daniel whispered, his voice trembling with excitement. "It's adapting faster than anything we've ever seen. How is that possible?" Laura grabbed her camera, snapping photos as fast as she could. "We need to document everything. This could change everything we know about biology." When Emily returned the next morning, she found Daniel and Laura huddled over Lumina, their faces pale with exhaustion but lit with awe. "You won't believe what happened last night," Daniel said, barely able to contain himself. He explained the spill and Lumina's rapid growth, showing Emily the images Laura had captured. Emily studied the photos carefully, her mind racing. "This is incredible," she murmured, "but also dangerous. If it can evolve this quickly, we need to be careful. We don't know what it's capable of." Over the next few days, the team observed Lumina closely, running test after test to understand its behavior. They noticed that it responded to stimuli in peculiar ways. When exposed to light, its glow dimmed slightly, as if it were conserving energy. When touched gently with a probe, it recoiled, then extended a tendril toward the source of contact as if curious. Daniel spent hours talking to Lumina, even though he knew it couldn't understand him. "Do you think you're smarter than us?" he joked one evening. "Maybe you're wondering why we're so limited." Laura rolled her eyes but didn't interrupt. She had grown used to Daniel's quirky habits and found his enthusiasm oddly endearing. Still, she kept her focus on gathering data, determined to uncover the secrets hidden within Lumina's glowing form. One night, while reviewing footage of Lumina's movements, Laura noticed something strange. The organism's pulsating glow seemed to match the rhythm of her own heartbeat. At first, she dismissed it as coincidence, but when she replayed the video, she realized the pattern was consistent. Lumina wasn't just reacting to external stimuli, it was responding to the people around it. She shared her findings with the team the next morning. "It's like it knows we're here," she said. "Like it's aware of us." Emily frowned. "Awareness implies intelligence. Are you saying it might be conscious?" "I'm not sure," Laura admitted. "But it's definitely more complex than we thought." Daniel grinned. "So maybe humans aren't so special after all. Maybe there's another way to be alive, one that's better suited to the universe than we are." Emily sighed. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We still have a lot to learn." Despite her caution, the idea lingered in their minds. Lumina was unlike anything they had encountered before, and its presence raised questions that went far beyond biology. What did it mean to be alive? What separated humans from other forms of life? And most importantly, why were humans made the way they were? As the days passed, Lumina continued to grow and adapt, challenging everything the team thought they knew. Each new discovery brought them closer to understanding the organism, but also further from understanding themselves. Word of Lumina's existence quickly spread beyond the confines of the research facility. It wasn't long before a government official arrived, accompanied by two stern-faced security personnel. His name was Ryan Mitchell, and he carried an air of authority that made everyone in the lab uneasy. Dressed in a crisp suit, he introduced himself with a curt nod and immediately requested a private meeting with Dr. Emily Roberts. Emily led him to a small office at the back of the lab, closing the door behind them. Through the glass walls, Daniel and Laura watched nervously as Ryan spoke in low tones. His gestures were sharp, his expression unreadable. When Emily returned a few minutes later, her face was pale but composed. She gathered the team and explained the situation. "The government knows about Lumina," she said, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. "They've sent Mr. Mitchell to oversee our work and ensure it remains contained." Daniel frowned. "Contained? What does that mean?" "It means they're worried about what might happen if Lumina gets out," Emily replied. "They see potential risks and opportunities." Ryan stepped forward, his presence dominating the space. "This organism is unlike anything we've encountered before," he said. "It has implications for science, technology, and even national security. We need to understand it fully before deciding how to proceed." Laura crossed her arms, skeptical. "And what happens if you don't like what we find?" Ryan's gaze hardened. "Then we'll take the necessary steps to protect the public." The weight of his words hung heavy in the air. The team exchanged uneasy glances, unsure whether to feel reassured or threatened. For now, they had no choice but to continue their research under Ryan's watchful eye. As days turned into weeks, Lumina continued to evolve in ways that defied explanation. Its tendrils grew longer and more intricate, forming patterns that seemed almost deliberate. During one experiment, Daniel projected simple shapes onto the wall near Lumina's containment unit. To his astonishment, the organism mimicked the shapes using its glowing tendrils, creating crude replicas of triangles and circles. Laura noticed this too and hurried to document the behavior. "It's learning," she whispered. "Not just reacting, actually learning." When she reported the discovery to the group the next morning, even Ryan seemed intrigued. He leaned forward, his earlier coldness replaced by cautious curiosity. "Show me," he said. Daniel obliged, repeating the experiment. This time, Lumina responded even faster, its glow shifting smoothly as it traced the shapes. Ryan watched silently, his jaw tightening. Finally, he stood up and addressed the team. "This changes things," he admitted. "If it's intelligent, we need to rethink our approach." "What kind of approach?" Emily asked, her tone wary. Ryan hesitated before answering. "There are records, classified files, about similar organisms discovered in the past. Some of them exhibited behaviors like this, but none survived long enough for us to learn much." "Survived?" Laura echoed. "What do you mean, survived?" Ryan glanced at her, then looked away. "Let's just say not all experiments end well." His evasiveness only fueled the team's unease. That evening, after Ryan and his security detail had left the lab, Daniel decided to dig deeper. Using credentials he'd borrowed from Ryan's briefcase during a routine inspection, he accessed restricted databases late at night. What he found shocked him. Decades-old reports detailed encounters with otherworld-like organisms, each bearing eerie resemblances to Lumina. These creatures had been studied covertly, often in secret facilities far removed from public scrutiny. Many had vanished without explanation, leaving behind fragmented data and unanswered questions. One report mentioned a hybrid organism, a mix of human and alien biology, that had displayed alarming levels of intelligence before being destroyed. Daniel stared at the screen, his heart pounding. He felt torn between sharing his findings with the team and keeping them hidden. In the end, he chose transparency. The next morning, he called everyone together, including Ryan, and presented what he had uncovered. "This isn't the first time something like Lumina has been found," Daniel began. "And every time the government stepped in, they shut down the research, erased the evidence, and silenced anyone who knew too much." Ryan's expression darkened. "You shouldn't have accessed those files," he said sharply. "Some information isn't meant for public consumption." "Why not?" Laura demanded. "If we're dealing with something this important, don't we deserve to know the truth?" Ryan sighed, rubbing his temples. "Because the truth isn't always safe. Those organisms weren't just intelligent, they were unpredictable. Some of them posed real threats." "But not all of them did," Emily interjected. "What if Lumina isn't dangerous? What if it's trying to communicate with us?" Ryan shook his head. "We can't afford to take that risk." The argument escalated, with voices rising and tempers flaring. Finally, Laura stepped between them, her hands raised in a gesture of peace. "Enough," she said firmly. "Fighting won't solve anything. If Lumina really is as special as we think, then destroying it would be a mistake. But so would ignoring the dangers." Her words brought a reluctant calm to the room. Ryan agreed to let the team continue their research for now, but warned them that his superiors would expect regular updates. As he left the lab, the tension lingered, casting a shadow over their work. Later that day, Emily found herself alone with Lumina. She sat quietly, watching its glow pulse softly in the dim light. "Are you trying to tell us something?" she murmured. "Or are we just projecting our own fears onto you?" Lumina didn't respond, not in words at least. But its glow brightened slightly, as if acknowledging her presence. Emily smiled faintly, feeling a strange sense of connection. Whatever Lumina was, it wasn't just a scientific anomaly. It was alive, aware, and perhaps even sentient. Daniel joined her a few minutes later, his face drawn with worry. "Do you think Ryan will let us keep studying it?" he asked. "I hope so," Emily replied. "But even if he doesn't, we can't give up. Not when we're this close to understanding." Daniel nodded, though doubt lingered in his eyes. "Understanding what, though? Why humans are different, or why we're the same?" Emily didn't answer. Instead, she turned her attention back to Lumina, her thoughts swirling with possibilities. The organism before them was a mystery, yes, but it was also a mirror, reflecting humanity's strengths, weaknesses, and endless capacity for wonder. As the hours passed, the team worked tirelessly, driven by both curiosity and fear. Lumina continued to grow and adapt, its tendrils reaching toward the edges of its containment unit as if yearning for freedom. And though none of them could admit it aloud, they all wondered the same thing. What would happen if Lumina escaped? Would it destroy them? Or teach them something profound about themselves? Tensions in the lab grew thicker with each passing day. Lumina's rapid evolution showed no signs of slowing, and its behavior became increasingly unpredictable. The organism now filled nearly half the containment unit, its glowing tendrils, stretching across the walls and ceiling like a living web. It responded to sounds, movements, and even emotions, as if it could sense the team's unease. Emily spent hours observing it, trying to decipher its patterns, but the more she learned, the less she understood. Daniel, on the other hand, couldn't shake the feeling that Lumina was trying to communicate. He began spending late nights in the lab, speaking softly to the organism, as if it were a child learning its first words. "Do you know what we are?" he asked one evening, his voice barely above a whisper. "Do you see us the way we see you?" Laura walked in moments later, carrying a tray of coffee cups. She set one down beside Daniel and sighed. "Talking to it won't make it answer," she said. "But I guess it's better than sitting around waiting for something bad to happen." "Something bad is already happening," Daniel replied, his tone heavy with frustration. "We're being watched, controlled, and lied to. Ryan isn't here to help us understand Lumina. He's here to shut it down if it gets too dangerous." Laura didn't argue. She knew he was right. Since Ryan's arrival, the atmosphere in the lab had shifted. The government liaison rarely left their side, his sharp eyes scanning every detail of their work. His security team monitored the facility 24/7, and their presence made everyone uneasy. Even Emily, usually calm and composed, seemed distracted, her focus divided between Lumina and the growing pressure from above. One night, after most of the team had gone home, Laura stayed behind to run additional tests. She projected simple shapes onto the wall near Lumina's containment unit, just as Daniel had done before. But this time, Lumina didn't mimic the shapes. Instead, it responded with images of its own, scenes that flickered across the walls like fragmented memories. Laura froze, her breath catching in her throat. The images were crude but unmistakable. Ancient forests, towering cities, and vast oceans teeming with life. There were flashes of war and destruction, followed by glimpses of peace and cooperation. It was as if Lumina was showing her the history of Earth, or at least its interpretation of it. Heart-pounding, Laura grabbed her camera and began recording. She called Emily and Daniel immediately, urging them to return to the lab. When they arrived, Lumina was still projecting the images, its glow pulsating in sync with the scenes on the wall. "What is this?" Emily whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "I don't know," Laura admitted. "But it's not random. It's telling us something." Daniel stepped closer, his voice trembling with excitement. "It's sharing its knowledge. Maybe it's trying to teach us." Ryan appeared moments later, alerted by the commotion. He stared at the glowing projections, his face unreadable. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Ryan turned to the team, his voice low but firm. "This changes everything." "How?" Emily asked, her tone cautious. Ryan hesitated before answering. "Because it proves what I've suspected all along. Lumina isn't just an alien organism, it's a hybrid, a fusion of human and something else." The room fell silent. Emily shook her head, struggling to process his words. "That's impossible. We've never seen anything like this before." "That's because you weren't meant to," Ryan replied. "Projects like this have been kept hidden for decades. They were experiments, failures mostly. But Lumina might be different." "Different how?" Daniel demanded. Ryan glanced at him, then looked away. "Different enough to pose a real threat. If it continues to evolve, it could rewrite the rules of biology. It could change what it means to be human." His words sent a chill through the room. Emily felt a knot tighten in her stomach. "And if it does?" she asked quietly. Ryan's expression hardened. "Then we'll lose control of it. And that's something we can't afford." The next morning, Ryan called an emergency meeting with his superiors. The team waited anxiously in the lab, unsure what would happen next. When Ryan returned, his demeanor had shifted. He seemed more distant, almost resigned. "They're sending reinforcements," he announced. "A team will arrive within 48 hours to assess the situation. Depending on their findings, they'll decide whether to continue the research or terminate it." "Terminate it?" Laura repeated, her voice rising. "You mean destroy it?" Ryan didn't answer directly. Instead, he focused on the floor, avoiding their eyes. "I'm sorry. This is out of my hands." The news hit the team like a punch to the gut. Emily felt a surge of anger, but she forced herself to stay calm. "We can't let them do this," she said. "Lumina isn't a threat. It's a chance to learn, to understand why we're the way we are. And if they don't see it that way," Ryan countered. "What then? Are you willing to risk everything for an organism you barely understand?" Emily didn't respond. She turned her attention back to Lumina, her mind racing. The organism pulsed softly, its glow dimming as if sensing the tension in the room. For the first time, Emily wondered if Lumina truly understood what was happening, if it knew its fate rested in the hands of people who feared it. That night, the team gathered in the lab, determined to find a solution. Daniel suggested smuggling Lumina out of the facility, but Laura shot down the idea immediately. "We'd never make it past security," she argued, "and even if we did, where would we go?" "We need proof," Emily said suddenly. "Something undeniable that shows Lumina isn't dangerous. Something that proves it's worth studying." "But how?" Daniel asked. "We've already tried everything." Emily hesitated, then nodded toward the glowing projections on the wall. "Not everything. Lumina's been trying to communicate with us. Maybe it's time we started listening." The team worked tirelessly through the night, setting up equipment to capture every detail of Lumina's behavior. They recorded its responses to sound, light, and touch, documenting patterns that hinted at intelligence far beyond what they had imagined. By morning, they had compiled a comprehensive report, complete with videos and analysis. When Ryan arrived, they presented their findings, hoping to sway his opinion. "Lumina isn't a threat," Emily insisted. "It's evolving, yes, but it's also learning. It responds to us in ways that suggest awareness, not aggression." Ryan listened silently, his expression unreadable. When they finished, he took the report and left without a word. The team exchanged worried glances, unsure if their efforts had made any difference. Hours passed, and the lab remained eerily quiet. Finally, Ryan returned, his face pale but resolute. "I've delayed the reinforcements," he said, "but only for 24 hours. If you want to save Lumina, you'll need to convince them yourselves." The weight of his words settled heavily on the team. They knew the odds were against them, but they also knew they couldn't give up. Whatever Lumina was, it deserved a chance to exist, not as a tool or a weapon, but as a living, breathing mystery. As the hours ticked by, the team prepared for the arrival of the assessment team. Emily rehearsed her arguments while Daniel fine-tuned the presentation. Laura double-checked the equipment, ensuring everything was ready for the demonstration. But deep down, none of them could shake the fear that their efforts might not be enough. Lumina continued to glow softly in its containment unit, its tendrils reaching outward as if searching for something, or someone. And though none of them dared to say it aloud, they all wondered the same thing. What would happen if Lumina decided to fight back? Would it lash out in fear, or would it show them something truly extraordinary? The day of the assessment team's arrival felt like a storm brewing on the horizon. The lab was unusually quiet, the air thick with anticipation and dread. Emily, Daniel, and Laura moved through their tasks with deliberate precision, each step calculated to make Lumina appear as harmless and fascinating as possible. They had rehearsed their presentation countless times, refining every detail to ensure they left no room for doubt about the organism's potential. Ryan stood at the entrance of the lab, his posture rigid as he waited for the team from headquarters. When they finally arrived, their presence was imposing. 3 individuals dressed in dark suits entered, their expressions stern and unreadable. One of them, A woman named Patricia Klein introduced herself as the lead investigator. Her sharp eyes scanned the room, taking in every detail before settling on Lumina. "Begin," she said simply, her tone leaving no room for hesitation. Emily stepped forward, her voice steady despite the nerves bubbling beneath the surface. "Thank you for coming. What we've discovered here is unlike anything documented in modern science. This organism, Lumina, is not only intelligent, but also capable of learning and adapting at an extraordinary rate." She gestured toward the containment unit where Lumina pulsed softly, its glow dimming slightly as if acknowledging the attention. Daniel activated the equipment, projecting images onto the wall that highlighted Lumina's behavior over the past weeks. The glowing tendrils responded almost immediately, mimicking the shapes and patterns displayed. "This isn't mere mimicry," Daniel explained. "It's interaction. Lumina doesn't just copy, it interprets and creates." Patricia watched, closely, her expression unchanged. She turned to Ryan. "And you believe this poses no threat?" Ryan hesitated, glancing at the team before answering. "Based on the data, I don't see evidence of hostility, but its rapid evolution raises concerns." Laura stepped in, her tone firm. "We understand the risks, but destroying it would mean losing an opportunity to learn something profound. If we can communicate with Lumina, maybe we'll finally understand why humans are so limited." Patricia raised an eyebrow. "Limited? Explain." Daniel took a deep breath. "Think about it. We're bound by our biology, our bodies, our brains, our lifespans. Lumina doesn't have those constraints. It evolves, adapts, and grows without limits. Maybe it's showing us another way to exist." The investigators exchanged glances, their silence heavy with unspoken thoughts. Patricia motioned for the team to continue. Emily nodded and initiated the next phase of the demonstration. Using sound frequencies, they triggered Lumina's response, causing it to project glowing patterns that seemed to tell a story. Scenes of Earth's history flickered across the walls, ancient civilizations, natural disasters, moments of human achievement, and instances of conflict. "It's sharing its understanding of us," Emily said softly. "It sees our flaws, our strengths, and everything in between." Patricia studied the projections carefully, her gaze lingering on images of war and destruction. "And what does it think of us?" she asked, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. No one spoke. The question hung in the air, unanswered yet impossible to ignore. Lumina pulsed gently, its glow brightening as if sensing the tension in the room. The mood shifted abruptly when Patricia signaled her team to move closer to the containment unit. One of them carried a device resembling a large scanner, which they began attaching to the glass walls. Daniel frowned. "What's that for?" "It's a containment override," Patricia replied bluntly. "If necessary, we'll neutralize Lumina immediately." Emily's heart sank. "You said you'd give us 24 hours. "And we did," Patricia countered. "But decisions must be made quickly. If Lumina becomes uncontrollable, we won't hesitate." The threat was clear, and the team exchanged worried looks. Laura clenched her fists, biting back a retort. Daniel leaned closer to Lumina, his voice barely audible. "Please," he whispered. "Show them you're not dangerous." As if responding to his plea, Lumina extended a tendril toward the glass, its glow pulsating rhythmically. For a moment, everyone held their breath. Then, unexpectedly, the organism projected a single word onto the wall. "Why?" The room fell silent. The investigators stared at the glowing letters, their faces unreadable. Patricia broke the silence first. "What does that mean?" Emily stepped forward, her voice trembling slightly. "It's asking us a question. Why are we doing this? Why are we afraid of it?" Patricia's jaw tightened. "Because fear keeps us alive." Before anyone could respond, Lumina reacted, its tendrils stretched outward, pressing against the edges of the containment unit. The glowing patterns shifted rapidly, forming chaotic shapes that filled the room with flickering light. Alarms blared as sensors detected increased energy levels. Within the chamber, Ryan shouted orders to his security team who rushed to contain the situation. "Stand back," he warned, pulling out a control panel linked to the override device. "No," Emily cried, stepping between them and the containment unit. "It's not attacking. It's defending itself." Patricia hesitated, her hand hovering over the activation button. "How can you be sure?" "Because it hasn't hurt anyone," Laura interjected. "Look at it. It's scared." Indeed, Lumina's movements weren't aggressive. They were erratic, as if trying to shield itself from perceived danger. The tendrils wrapped around the edges of the containment unit, forming a protective barrier. Its glow dimmed, then brightened, again in rhythmic pulses, almost like breathing. Daniel approached cautiously, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "It's okay," he murmured. "We're not going to hurt you." To everyone's surprise, Lumina retracted its tendrils, slightly, its glow softening. The chaos subsided, leaving the room bathed in a gentle, pulsating light. The alarms stopped, and the tension eased, but only slightly. Patricia lowered her hand, though her expression remained guarded. "This changes nothing," she said. "We still need answers." Emily nodded, relief washing over her. "Then let us keep working. Give us more time to figure this out." Patricia glanced at her team, then back at Lumina. Finally, she sighed. 24 hours, that's all you get." As the investigators left the lab, the team exhaled collectively, the weight of uncertainty still pressing down on them. Ryan lingered behind, his face grim. "You realize this isn't over," he said quietly. "They'll be back, and next time they might not listen." "We know," Emily replied. "But for now, we have a chance. And that's enough." That night, the team stayed late, watching Lumina closely. Its glow pulsed steadily, its tendrils resting against the walls of the containment unit. Daniel sat cross-legged on the floor, staring at the organism. "Do you think it understands us?" he asked. "I think it tries," Emily said. "Maybe that's all any of us can do." Laura leaned against the counter, her arms crossed. "We've bought ourselves some time, but what happens when they come back? What if they decide to shut it down anyway?" Emily didn't answer right away. She turned her gaze to Lumina, her thoughts swirling with possibilities. "Then we'll have to find a way to protect it," she said finally. "Because whatever Lumina is, it deserves a chance to exist." The hours passed slowly, the lab bathed in the soft glow of the organism. Outside, the desert stretched endlessly, silent and vast. Inside, the team worked tirelessly, driven by a shared determination to uncover the truth, not just about Lumina, but about themselves. For now, the question remained unanswered. Why were humans made the way they were? Was it a flaw or a gift? As Lumina pulsed softly in its containment unit, it seemed to echo the same uncertainty, its light flickering like a heartbeat in the darkness. The final hours before the investigators returned felt like a race against time. Emily, Daniel, and Laura worked without pause, their movements fueled by desperation and determination. They reviewed every piece of data they had collected, searching for anything that might strengthen their case. Lumina remained at the center of their efforts, its glow steady but faint, as if it too was waiting. As dawn broke over the desert, the team gathered around the containment unit. Emily spoke first, her voice calm but firm. "We've done everything we can, now it's up to them." Daniel nodded, though his eyes betrayed his unease. "Do you think they'll listen?" "I don't know," Emily admitted. "But we have to believe they will." Laura glanced at the clock on the wall. "They'll be here soon. Are we ready?" "As ready as we'll ever be," Emily replied. Moments later, the sound of footsteps echoed through the lab. Patricia Klein and her team entered, their expressions as unreadable as before. Ryan followed behind them, his face pale and drawn. He avoided meeting the scientist's eyes, his guilt evident despite his silence. Patricia wasted no time. "Show us what you found," Emily stepped forward, guiding the group to the containment unit. She began explaining their latest observations, pointing out how Lumina's behavior suggested intelligence rather than aggression. Daniel activated the equipment, replaying recordings of the organism mimicking shapes, responding to sounds, and projecting images of Earth's history. "This isn't just an experiment," Emily said. "It's a living being. It learns, adapts, and communicates in ways we're only beginning to understand." Patricia listened intently, her sharp gaze fixed on Lumina. When Emily finished, she turned to her team. "Your thoughts?" One of the investigators spoke up. "It's impressive, but intelligence doesn't guarantee safety. If it evolves beyond our control, the risks outweigh the benefits." Laura stepped forward, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. "You keep talking about risks, but what about the opportunities? This could change everything we know about biology, evolution, even humanity itself. Don't we owe it to ourselves to find out?" Patricia's expression softened slightly, though her tone remained firm. "Opportunities come with consequences. Are you prepared to face those?" Before anyone could respond, Lumina reacted. Its glow brightened and tendrils stretched outward, forming patterns that pulsed rhythmically. The projections on the walls shifted, displaying scenes of cooperation, humans working together, building, creating, and helping one another. It was as if Lumina was showing them its vision of hope. The room fell silent. Patricia stared at the glowing images, her brow furrowed in thought. Finally, she turned to the team. "You've made your point, but the decision isn't mine alone." Ryan stepped forward hesitantly. "If I may, perhaps there's another option." All eyes turned to him. He cleared his throat, his voice trembling slightly. "Instead of destroying it, we could transfer Lumina to a secure facility where it can be studied safely, somewhere isolated with strict protocols in place." Patricia considered this, her gaze shifting between Ryan and the organism. "And who would oversee such a facility?" "I would," Emily said quickly. "With Daniel and Laura. We've been with Lumina from the start. We understand it better than anyone." Patricia exchanged glances with her team, then nodded slowly. "Very well. We'll arrange for the transfer, but under one condition." "What's that?" Laura asked. "That you share all findings with us. No secrets, no delays. If anything changes, we act immediately." The team agreed without hesitation. Relief washed over them, though they knew the battle wasn't truly over. For now, Lumina was safe. In the days that followed, preparations for the transfer began. The lab buzzed with activity as equipment was packed and protocols were finalized. Lumina seemed to sense the change, its glow dimming slightly as if uncertain about what lay ahead. On the day of the move, Emily stood beside the containment unit, her hand resting gently against the glass. "We'll take care of you," she whispered. "I promise." Daniel joined her, his voice soft. "Do you think it understands us?" "I think it tries," Emily replied. "Maybe that's all any of us can do." As the truck carrying Lumina pulled away from the lab, the team watched in silence. Laura crossed her arms, her expression thoughtful. "What happens now?" "We keep learning," Emily said, "about Lumina and about ourselves." Weeks passed, and the new facility became a hub of discovery. Lumina continued to evolve, its behavior growing more complex with each passing day. It responded to music, art, and even poetry, as if drawn to human creativity. The team documented every moment, sharing their findings with Patricia and her team as promised. One evening, as the sun set over the desert, Emily sat alone in the observation room. Lumina pulsed softly in its containment unit, its glow casting warm light across the walls. She smiled faintly, feeling a strange sense of connection. Whatever Lumina was, it reminded her of humanity's endless capacity for wonder, and its flaws. Daniel entered quietly, sitting beside her. "Still asking yourself why humans are made the way they are?" Emily chuckled softly. "Every day. But maybe the answer isn't so simple. Maybe it's not about being perfect or even better. Maybe it's about being alive." Daniel nodded, his gaze fixed on Lumina. And maybe that's enough. As the two sat in silence, Lumina's glow brightened slightly as if agreeing with them. Outside, the desert stretched endlessly, vast and unchanging. Inside, the small team of scientists continued their work, driven by curiosity and hope. For now, the question remained unanswered. Why were humans made the way they were? But perhaps the answer didn't matter as much as the journey to find it. And as Lumina pulsed softly in its chamber, it seemed to echo the same sentiment. A quiet reminder that life in all its forms was worth exploring.